started? All right. Welcome to another segment of Conversation with Folo, which as of tonight, we are going to be changing it. It will now be called Folo's Convos. Trying to make it separate, distinct of its own. So that will be the new title of these talks that I will be having with my various guests. I am excited tonight because the guest I am going to be talking with is my very own parents. Lamont Patterson Sr., who we call affectionately Senior, and my mother, Patricia Patterson, who we call Boobay.
Uh-oh. Tell my name.
Right? So let me establish that these are my parents, but they are not together, married, none of those things above. They have been divorced for 48 years. So to even have this opportunity to sit and talk with them is a rare occasion in itself. My father lives in Florida and my mother lives in Texas, and they both came down for my 50th birthday celebration. And I couldn't let this time pass without, seizing the moment of being able to sit down and just have a convo with them. So welcome, so glad to have y'all here.
Glad to be here.
How y'all doing tonight?
Blessed.
Very good.
Nervous?
Yes.
Well, we have been discussing how this is going to take place, and my thought was just to be able to have a transparent conversation. The fact that I am able to share this book, Looking Through the Fog, that was written while I was incarcerated, all those things came to fruition only because of me being the seed of the two of these people. So what better way to get to know the author a little bit better than the two had a hand in creating him. But also too, the mindset that shaped me, the perceptions that I took on was giving birth to the relationship that I had with the two of them. So I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to begin to explore that a little bit and really peel back some layers of who I am through the lens of the two of them. So my thought is this, being the only child raised by you, it was an interesting dynamic because although you were a very, very loving parent and mother, you could never be a father. My relationship with you for many years were strained, and there were many times that there was resentment from me towards you because of the lack of relationship we had. So those early years planted seeds in me in how I seen life, even how I seen myself. There were times when I felt I wasn't good enough. There was times when I felt that you were smothering. There were times when I didn't know who I was based upon the dynamics of our relationship, and that began to kind of develop into its own identity. In the book, I talk about how we wear various masks, and I think as a kid, I found myself doing that more and more because I was trying to figure out who I was or who I wanted to be, to whether be it, to be liked or accepted or whatever the case may be. And that came from the dynamics of what we had. So what was it like, you just having me and not him? Or how was that experience for you in regards to having to raise me on your own? Not in the sense of bashing him or any of that nature, but just the dynamics of our relationship, of us being together.
It was interesting. It was hard to an extent because you being young had a lot of questions, and not to put any, but you was always asking me, where's my father? Or why my father wasn't in my life. Is that okay for me to say that?
Well, you already said it. Yeah. Well, hold it up for 1 second. So let me establish this. I don't want to make it seem in any shape, form, or fashion that there's any attack against any person, because my father and I have a very wonderful relationship
Amen.
now.
That's beautiful.
We have a very, very loving relationship. We have grown so close, but it's been a journey getting to that point. So what we're talking about now is when it wasn't that point. In my earlier years, when there wasn't a relationship, that's the dynamics she's talking about. And we've talked about it enough to where we feel comfortable to be open and transparent about it, because there are a lot of families who are in that situation and there isn't healing. There are a lot of families who there's dysfunction because they don't talk about it. And I'm hoping that as I share my experiences with them, that someone who's watching this may be able to see their own self and begin their own healing. So continue.
Yes, because they simply kick it under the rug.
Right.
They don't talk about it. They it's hush hush, but then yet they can't stand each other.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm thankful to God, and I'm thankful for my son and my ex-husband,
Your baby daddy.
my baby daddy, mama drama, however they go, my baby daddy, because it's good that we can talk. Because I remember when you were 6 years old, I never forget that. Where my tissue?
I got tissue right there. I got tissue on deck.
And it took me. And
Already?
already.
Like 5 minutes
We
into
just getting started. I remember him asking me, Mom, he said, why my daddy don't like me? Why is my daddy mad at me? You were 6 years old. And did I do anything for my daddy? He don't call me, he don't write me, and at that time, you was in the Air Force, and he was in Kalamazoo, wherever you was on the other side of the world. He was in the service. And you asked me, crying, why he's not in my life, did I do anything to make him mad? And as a mother, I mean, it really tore me up, because, and it's not that he didn't love you, but it was hard for me to explain to you where your dad was. I said that, we wasn't together. Well, actually we were, but he was in the service going a lot. But anyway, it was hard. And I remember one day he called me, and I told him what you said and how you felt, and you were hurting. He felt like you didn't love him. And you said these words to me, and I'll never forget it. You told me, you said, I may not have been there, but I have to tell you, Pat, that you've been a wonderful mother, and that you've been doing an excellent job of raising them by yourself. And we have an old saying, and when he said that to me, it really opened up my mind. But we used to say, I'm the mother and the father too, because I'm doing all this by myself. I don't have a man, the father figure, to be there to raise you and encourage you. And so we used to say, well, I'm the mother and the father too, but you brought that out to me as you got older, saying you've been the best mother in the world, and I couldn't have asked for a better mother. But you couldn't be a father because you're not a man, and you don't experience, you don't know what a man or boy, child go through.
Right.
And that really made me, open up my eyes. But, and it was quite a while. It was a big resentment. You resented him for not being in your life. You really resented him. And so as time passed, you got older, but you really, really had an anger for him. And you told me one day that you was angry with your father, that you were so mad. And you said these words, if he would have been in my life, I think a lot of mistakes I made, I wouldn't have made if I had a man to be in my life. And you had grown so angry with him. And I told him, and do you remember this, Lamont? Y'all had a conversation, y'all kind of fussed a little bit. And but I told him, I said, you need to talk to your father. You need to tell him how you feel. You remember that?
I do.
I said, because you had so much anger. I don't think it was so much hatred, but so much anger built up in you. And you had made some mistakes. And you said to me, I remember you had got a speeding ticket. And we had to go get you out of jail for the speeding ticket. And I remember you saying to me that a lot of mistakes I made, I felt like if he would have been in my life, I wouldn't have made these mistakes. I said, you need to talk to him and let him know how you feel. And I never forget you going upstairs calling him, and some big words was coming out. And y'all actually, you were actually fussing. I don't know what was going on the other end. He probably was listening.
You was listening.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you actually, I said, you need to vent. You need to get that out because you got too much anger, and that anger can build into hatred. You need to let them know how you feel. And you went upstairs and you called them, and y'all had a heating. You had a heating conversation with your father. Go ahead.
So let me say this. So Senior is not one who's been very expressive of his feelings. He's not one to divulge much about his inner thoughts, his past, his emotions. He's very tight-lipped. And as a kid, not understanding him in that space, I took it as rejection. I took it as he didn't love me. I took it as, in his eyes, I was a mistake. And not knowing who he was or how his mind even operated shaped the way I even looked at him because I didn't understand the person he was. So even that statement that you made about how, when I got to speak to him, I said, well, if he would have been in my life. So now that becomes deference. Because even though me having in my life would have shaped me differently, it would have stopped me from getting a speeding ticket.
Right.
But now that becomes the reason for all my wrongs. Well, because he wasn't here, I did this, and because we began to do that. But the resentment was real. What I felt was every bit true to my heart and my mind because I didn't know who you were. Because even I did talk to you, you never shared anything with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until I started talking to my uncle that he began to tell me the dynamics of how y'all was raised, the sternness of your household, and the pressure that was put on you as being the oldest, and how that began to shape you into being this hard and tough person because that's what you were taught to be. And so when he began to tell me that, it was like, okay, so you're not that way. You're very loving and affectionate, but he's much more reserved, more drawn. He's like, yeah, because our grandmother made him like that. She was preparing him for the world, and so he had to be tough, and he had to be this, and he had to be that. So showing emotion was like not allowed. So I'm like, well, nah, I get punished for it. I mean, but I didn't understand it because you and I had never talked about that. And even after he told me that, it still took a long time for me to really wrap my head around what that really meant in regards to the way you did express. So out of your own mouth, how do you feel about all these things that we're saying and sharing? I know them wheels are turning over.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not trying to bash you.
No, okay. Well, let's put it this way. From the very beginning, when Bube, I call her Pat, Bube first told me she was pregnant. I was overseas. In fact, I was in Vietnam. She wrote me a letter, said she found out she was pregnant. And I was one of the happiest persons in the world.
Really?
For real.
Why you tell me? No.
And the first thing I said, though, when I wrote you back, I said, I know it's going to be a boy. Remember that? Because I always wanted a son to carry on the Patterson legacy. And when she said, well, suppose it's not a boy. I said, well, it's going to be a boy.
I remember that.
So from day one, I was proud from the very beginning. I had no doubts in my mind. I knew it was going to be great from the very beginning. And to see where you are now is proving that.
Wow.
Okay? I've never given up hope. Pat and I, after we did get separated and found a divorce, I still thought what you were doing. I would contact Pat when I could. I was asking how you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I heard of your ups. I heard about your downs.
There's plenty of those.
Yes.
Right.
And I was very concerned. I'm very concerned. Through all your trials and tribulations, I can truly say I went those same miles right along with you.
Wow.
Even though I was not there with you to hold your hand or pat you on the back or lift you up, I still traveled those miles with you. And to get to the point where we are now, it has turned my life around a great deal. I'm much older, much wiser, a hell of a lot prouder of what you have become.
Thank you.
And I still can say, that's my son.
All right.
You right over there?
I'm okay.
So, okay, well, why you just tell me all this stuff? I see you never just said, I never knew all that.
Well, you guys, I really don't know.
Can I say something right quick? To not to interrupt, but I remember years ago. Y'all excuse me. I began to think about the relationship, and I was so happy and so proud of y'all coming together, because I know for a long time he longed to have his father in his life, and so when y'all begin to bond, it really blessed me to know that. But something that, and I want to give you problem one, because I think we had talked about it years ago, and you never had a father in your life.
That's true.
You never had a man to be there for you. And I thought about it one day, and I said, sometimes you have to learn things, or have to be taught things. And if you never had a man to love you, sometimes it's hard to be able to know how to give out love. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I thought about that, and I cried one day, because I said, he's the way he is because he never had it. And so this is what it over the years kind of caused a rip, because you were longing, you had my love.
Oh, it didn't kind of cause a rift.
It caused a rip, and so you longed to have that man in your life. But in the same token, he couldn't give what he didn't have. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You never had that father love to tell you that, they love you. You went to the Air Force and you became a, what you call it, the mechanics, computers. You learned and you taught yourself, and you did something with your life. So, but you had never had somebody to come back, and I don't know about your mom, and I knew your mom and you were close, but you never had that man to come and tell you, I'm proud of you, son, or such and such. So you didn't know how to give it out.
That's true.
But I didn't think about that for years, and all of a sudden it just hit me, and I cried about that. And I said, this is why he was distance. He didn't have it. He didn't know how to give it.
But here's the thing about that, and I want you to continue what you were saying. That becomes generational.
Yeah.
Because
it does.
We don't know what happened before him.
Exactly. His father.
Whoever his father was.
Exactly.
And as a result, there was a void between him and I. But even when I had my first child, there came a void between my son and myself. I was repeating the cycle.
Exactly.
And I had said I would never be the man my father was when it comes to my child, and that's exactly where I was. And crazy part about it, and I knew it lack of love. That's why I had to understand that the fact that I wasn't in my son's life the way I needed to be had nothing to do with how I felt about him emotionally. Mm-hmm. So if that was true to me, then how did Senior really look at me? And I had to begin to question what I wasn't understanding about what he felt, or what I didn't see, did that really fully display how he looked at me, because I know how I looked at my child. But anyway, continue what you were saying.
And based on that thought right there about the strangeness, it was at first, but like I said, I had always kept in my thoughts and my prayers, no matter where it was or when it was. Mm-hmm. I know that the strangeness was there, because Pat and I talked about that. Mm-hmm. And she would ask me, well, we need to do something for you all to get back together. I said, well, what we need to do? What we need to do? But it never came to pass. Mm-hmm. And then when it finally started coming together, okay, and we and I actually sit down together face to face and started talking, mm-hmm. I think we both could see then what we need to say each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And how we took each other. You had to understand me, mm-hmm. and I had to understand you. Because mm-hmm. we're two different worlds, coming together as one.
Right.
Exactly.
And it was a great experience for me too, like I said. In fact, like I said, still my number one son, because there is only one. And it's, like I say, it's a proud thing in my life to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, you had your son, and the correlation of our lives, how it progressed too. And I noticed that your son, your firstborn, the trail he took actually followed mine.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated from high school, I went to college, and from college I went into the military.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the Air Force. Boom, what happened? You have a son,
Mm-hmm.
what happened? He graduates, fills the college a little bit, and goes to the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And vaguely enough, he goes to the same bases that I was stationed at.
Right.
It was like a correlation there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I could see that bondage between your son, with you, and with me.
Mm-hmm.
That was that magnetism that came. That's why I could relate to him so much.
Mm-hmm.
So what I couldn't give to you, I was giving to him.
And ironically enough, he had the same resentment toward me that I had towards you. Because it was a cycle,
Yeah.
you know. But fortunately, that relationship is healed.
Yeah.
So-
All fronts.
So people may be wondering why am I spending so much time talking about this particular dynamic? Because this book was written from a space of emotions that were lived by me in one form or fashion. The things that are expressed in regards to how Tyler felt about his father and the things he said weren't in direct line with the dynamics of me and my father, but the emotions were the same. I was able to develop that character and the way he felt about that lack of relationship based upon how I felt once upon a time. Even how he interacted with his mother, knowing that she did her best and loved her, but wasn't enough at times, was built upon my relationship with my mother. So these characters are all a part of me in some form or fashion. But it's this dynamic that has shaped that very lens that this was written through, because I had to walk through those experiences first. And it's interesting because we talk about where we were then, but those ups and downs you talked about, I think really laid the groundwork for our relationship to begin to become stronger, because it was during that down time that you really became fully evolved in my life. I remember I was in county and I had been there for going on 3 years. I was getting ready to get sentenced, and senior had came and visited me a couple of times, and I had a bond that we couldn't afford, and I was fussing to myself, venting to Queen, that he hadn't put up the bond for myself. He got the property, he got this, he got stuff tough to pay the bond, and blah 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 blah. Why won't he do it? Blah blah blah. So now it's about time for me to get sentenced, and I wrote this letter, and I'm venting. So I'm on the phone, and I'm reading it to Queen. Yeah, this is what I'm sending. Let me read this to you. And I read through the whole letter, and she doesn't say a word. She just lets me read. And as I get done with the letter, I'm expecting her to say, "Okay, I understand, baby." She's like, "You're not sending that, are you?" Oh yeah, I'm sending that. Babe, you're not sending that letter, are you? I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. She was like, no, you can't send that. Okay, so I'm seeing now we're running out of time. I'm gonna have you hold right there because we're gonna end this particular part of the segment. But before I go, you are watching Folo's Convos. We are sitting here talking to my mother, my mother, Patricia Patterson, who I call Boobay, my father, Lamont Patterson, who I call Senior, and my book is Looking Through the Fog, www.folopatterson.com. I'm on all social media outlets. You can get it in ebook as well. Stay tuned for part 2. We shall return.
Thank you.
Thank you.